Hello and welcome to Let's H. Today we've got another great review, but first scroll down and click on the read more, visit the links, and become a patron on Patreon. You get great rewards every month, and it's the best way to show your support for what I do. Please do consider becoming one today. So today's review is of The Lords of Salem by artist Rob Zombie. He's not only a musician, but he's also a writer, director, and all-round creator. I've seen some of his movies. In fact, I've seen most of them. I really liked The Lords of Salem. While I can definitely get behind people that felt like House of a Thousand Corpses was bringing something back to horror, and I could even see that the Halloween interpretation that he did had a different story to tell, and at parts did its own thing successfully, I wasn't really that fond of most of the things that he had done as whole works up to The Lords of Salem. I hated The Devil's Rejects, for example, even if I could appreciate some aspects of House of a Thousand Corpses. I wouldn't really recommend anything that he had done, because overall I was so dissatisfied with everything that I had seen. But when I saw The Lords of Salem, I was very impressed. The Lords of Salem is an extremely impressive film. It's not flawless, don't get me wrong, but it's a great presentation of Rob Zombie's ability as a writer and a director. It also does a great job of letting actress Sherry Moon have the spotlight and show how strong of an actress she is. She's holding her own amongst some really impressive actresses, including Patricia Quinn, Dee Wallace, and Judy Geeson. Her portrayal of Heidi is so realistic and believable. She feels like a real person. And that's perhaps one of the best things about The Lords of Salem. All of the characters feel like real people. They feel like people that we could know, the people we could encounter in real life. Heidi has problems. She's a recovering addict. Her friends seem like good people, but at the same time, they're not perfect people. They're not always there for her in the ways that she needs. And that is perhaps the most tragic element of the film, that Heidi's descent is one that's meteoric and unable to really be brought under control. The seemingly kindly landlady becomes more and more menacing, as does the place where she lives. This is a slow burn film. If you're a big fan of 70s pacing and the kind of creepy eeriness that they could present, you'll love The Lords of Salem. But I will warn you, it's very downbeat and rather bleak. It's horrifying. It's very scary. But its scares are distributed fairly evenly along the runtime. There are some things here that would otherwise be kind of ludicrous, but in the framing and even the way it's shot, they end up being absolutely terrifying. The weird thing about The Lords of Salem is that the witches we see in it are evil, they're horrible, but the supposed good guys we see, which we are to assume they are that simply because they oppose the witches, they're not good people either. This is a film about a vindictive curse, a sort of a war that no longer is going on, but that the people involved in are perpetuating for their own reasons. Heidi and the people around her are simply caught in the crossfire. They're not bad people, they just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time and of the wrong stock. They didn't have anything to do with their lineage or heritage, but everyone involved who is affected typically through no fault of their own. That makes it even more horrifying. Even with some of the surreal and absolutely fantastical things that happen, characters like Heidi didn't really do anything to deserve the horrible things that are happening to her. What's especially great about it is that sometimes the sequences are so surreal that we don't know if she's hallucinating them or whether they are in fact real. But we must imagine that they are in fact real, because of the things happening around her. This is part of the excellence of the presentation, and something that we can take away from it that has many levels. It's wonderful to see so many great actors that I've loved throughout my life in either bit roles or more considerable roles. Unfortunately, some of them are used so little that it's difficult to actually get to see them, and that's a shame. Some of the great actors had deleted scenes, but that's all they were able to have, and unfortunately, the releases of The Lords of Salem haven't included any of those deleted scenes. They've been very bare-bones releases. But it's really wonderful to see the more prominent roles in this, such as Judy Geeson's Lacey and Patricia Quinn's Megan, and of course Dee Wallace's delightfully horrifying Sunny. It's wonderful to watch them chew the scenery even. And like I said before, Sherry Moon does a fantastic job in the same scenes with these very formidable, very scenery-chewing actresses. You'll see them do these things, or even just sitting around conveying things by their expressions alone. Everybody comes off as very realistic. Honestly, I don't know if Sherry Moon would be so strong under a director that didn't know her as well as Rob Zombie, but I have to imagine that she must be. She's always impressed me in everything she's been in, but most of what I've seen her in has been Rob Zombie films. Still, I would defend her as a very good, very strong actress, based on simply the fact that even in films where she's not given a lot to do with the script, she still manages to do something respectable with it. In The Lords of Salem, there's a lot of requirement that she convey all kinds of emotion, all kinds of motivation, all kinds of things going through her head that come off as being genuine, being real. It's easy to believe that she is a beleaguered character, a woman in a difficult situation that she doesn't realize until it's too late exactly how difficult it is. Whitey and Herman, her two friends and co-DJs on their program, also do a great job of portraying realistic people that are believable, who have ups and downs, who have good moments and not so good moments, but who are, deep down, good friends of Heidi and care about her. Again, as I said before, they're good people caught up in a bad situation. Similarly, Bruce Davison does a fantastic job as Francis Matthias, and Maria Conchita Alonso does a great job as Alice, his wife. These are characters that have a fairly prominent role, but in the case of Alice, for example, she never interacts with any of the other main characters but her husband. Nonetheless, she comes off as being a distinctive person and not defined by her relationship with Francis. It's great to see characters that have their own lives and their own existences, and even if they don't have a huge prominent role with one of the more main characters, they nonetheless actually have an existence of their own, which is something that I've always thought would be a better analysis of a character, to ask if they have an existence outside of their relation to the main character. Do they appear to be real, to do anything when the main character is not there, when they're not interacting with the main character? And in the case of all the characters in The Lords of Salem, I would say yes. The great thing about it is that even though it introduces characters that it never actually focuses on, that it never actually develops as people in some of the scenes, we're still interested in them and we still see them throughout the film. They have lives of their own, we just don't concentrate on them because we have to concentrate on Heidi. Even though the film is slightly above average length, there's a lot that has to be done to build Heidi and develop her as a character, as well as to develop the situation that's unfolding around her. It is a very supernatural situation, but it's made real and accessible by the way in which it is framed. Even though there are surreal sequences, they're shot in a way and framed in a way that make them seem believable, whether as possible hallucinations, dreams and nightmares, or as legitimate sequences outside the normal human experience. I was especially impressed by the use of music with the film, and as Rob Zombie is a musician, that makes it all the more impressive. I know some of you might not find his work outside of filmmaking to your taste, but at the same time I cannot criticize what he has used for the film, especially in his use of music from the Velvet Underground. Nico is one of my favorite artists of all time, and I was absolutely stunned and affected when I heard All Tomorrow's Parties, because thinking back at the film, the song fit it so perfectly. In fact, it fits it so perfectly that I had to think that maybe it inspired the film in some way. Maybe it sparked off something, and then one thing led to another, and everything domino cascaded into what we got. Is it a perfect film? No, absolutely not. I've read the book that was said to be a bit closer to the original script, and I have to say that the film did it better. There are some different things in the book that I think were either too bleak or didn't suit the tone anyway, or would have taken away from the central narrative. It's already quite a lot to take on Heidi's life and to absorb everything that is indicated about her. It doesn't hold your hand, which is another good thing that I like about it. It implies a lot of things without taking the time to have a character be stupid and ask a question about something that they should already logically know. However, for some viewers, on the first viewing you'll probably miss a lot, and it might be confusing. It's also confusing sometimes to distinguish reality from fantasy or a nightmare or a dream or some sort of vision, some sort of surreal experience. When everything starts to mingle, though, you see the reason for this, but some people might find it off-putting and annoying. Personally, I liked it because I liked to have my perceptions challenged with film, and I liked the fact that sometimes it was difficult to tell which was which, especially as the film went on, and it became clear that some of the things that had seemed surreal and didn't actually happen had actually happened. There are also some sequences that are legitimately uncomfortable. When the witches confront Francis later, I felt like it was too much of a callback to some of his more brutal films like House of a Thousand Corpses or even The Devil's Rejects, and I didn't like those for the simple fact that most of it didn't work for me as a horror fan. It wasn't my kind of horror. Fortunately, it's limited to just 1 or 2 scenes in the film, but it's still kind of uncomfortable. Some of the witch flashback scenes are equally uncomfortable, but they serve purposes in that the witches also must be made to be unsympathetic, to be as evil as the people that persecuted them, if not more so. That's what makes it such a compelling but also such a difficult situation, and such a hard film to enjoy for some people that might prefer a bit of a more positive take on it, or at least a little bit more hopeful. Where The Lords of Salem is concerned, there aren't really happy endings for most of the people. In fact, it doesn't really end as such. It just indicates what may have happened next. It's a complete enough look into the life of one person and the lives that touch hers, but it leaves so many things unaddressed that one is tempted to find out more. It's what made me want to read the book and why, in fact, I went and read it. It's a story that leaves you wanting more, which most people would say in entertainment is a good thing. Always leave them wanting more. In that, Lords of Salem was a huge success for me. It left me wanting so much more. The performances were very good overall. The story was highly compelling, but it's not an upbeat film. It's very much a horror film and very much a 70s feel horror film. And if you've seen any of the 70s films that this is an homage to, you'll probably know what I mean when I say the 70s had a tighter hold on bleak-ass films than most other decades. So, if you can't take it, this film is not for you. There's also occasionally an excess of strong language. It's not for everybody. I don't mind it, but after a while it sort of inures you to the language. It's not too much for everybody, but it's something that you kind of notice. Still, it's not excessive to the point of being ridiculous and incongruous, and the dialogue seems to fit fairly well, aside from, as I said, the scene where the witches confront Francis, which I felt was excessive and uncomfortable both in dialogue and in content. If I had to cut a scene from the film, that one would be one that I would cut down significantly. Can I recommend this film? To some people. As I've said before, if you like the 70s style of pacing, a slow burn, creepy, eerie film with lots of actors that you'll know from other things, and lots of solid acting, as well as an intriguing story, this might be the film for you. If you're fairly sensitive, if you're easily squicked, or if you're particularly sensitive to touching upon religious topics, then this film may not be for you. It's also a very artistic film, and has a lot of flourishes that some people may find inaccessible. The last sequence in particular is one that the first time through, I just sort of stared at the screen and said, what the hell was that? But the second time through, I thought, oh, okay, I get it. I understand now. That's much more interesting. That actually makes sense to me now. It's not something that will appeal to everyone, but I still give it a good score because overall The Lords of Salem engaged me. It also frightened me, legitimately frightened me at points, and it had some fantastic performances from actors that you may not have seen in a long time, but who more than prove the fact that they can still hold their own as leading roles. If you find most of Rob Zombie's output off-putting or too extreme, The Lords of Salem may be a better film for you to see that he can do an understated, subtle, and fairly sophisticated work film. It's the kind of horror that I grew up watching, and it's the kind of horror that I'd actually like to see come back a bit more. So what do you think? Leave your comments below, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. And again, I'd like to point you to the blurb below. Click the read more, visit the links, become a patron on Patreon. Fabulous rewards every month, and it's the best way to show your support for what I do. Thanks very much for taking the time to watch. I will see you next time. Subscribe to my channel if you want to keep yourself in the loop. Thanks again for listening. Have a good week. Bye.